Welcome to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about cabinet refacing. Now, cabinet refacing is one of our most popular services, and I want to describe to you guys, what it is, how it works, who it's a good fit for, and what are some of the benefits of refacing versus some of the other kitchen remodel types you can take on. All right, so clearly we're in the middle of this project right here. This is not what your kitchen's gonna end up as, but I wanna speak to kind of the whole process and how it works so you as the homeowner know what to expect when you're refacing your kitchen. It's all very simple when we first start out. We're doing things like putting countertop protection down, we're putting floor protection down. At some point, earlier in the project, we're gonna have dust protection up. But the first step is really just make sure we're covering everything in your home and, taking care of those little details right off the bat. After that, we take off all of your existing doors and drawer fronts. So that's all of these that swing out, and the drawer fronts are the items that are fixed to the actual drawers themselves. Once we have those off, then we're going to prep your cabinets for the new skins that are going to be applied. So what that involves is, filling all the old nail holes, giving it a really good cleaning with a degreasing product, because the new veneers that we apply to your cabinets, they're going to have, some type of adhesive on them, and that needs a really clean surface to be able to stick to them. Just a kind of a sidebar here about what's different about refacing versus some of the other methods out there. Refacing, you actually apply new skins to your cabinet, right? So unlike painting, where we just leave what's there and add a coat of paint to it, these are actually factory finished veneers, and they're a really, really durable finish. So one thing we see a lot of times when people get their cabinets painted is within a couple years that surface is chipping and kind of wearing off. But when you reface, like I said, you're getting a factory finished, which is really, really durable because they have really controlled, really tight conditions to make this finish really long lasting. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so once your cabinets are prepped, that's when we actually apply the veneers. Now, there's a couple different methods that you can use for that. On this project, we're using a pressure sensitive adhesive. This is one of my personal favorites because there's very little mess with it. The adhesive is, right here on the back of these veneers. It's just a peel and stick. Some of the other methods, we can use solid hardwoods on the faces of them, or we can also use 1/8 inch thick plywood. You probably don't need to know all that. We typically handle that, what method is going to be the best for you. But it is nice to know that you've got some options. So once we've got all of the veneers or hardwoods or whatever we're doing in your kitchen applied, that's when we install brand new doors and drawer fronts. So pretty standard with our kitchens, we're always going to do soft close doors. Some kind of bonus features that you can add on if you want are new drawer boxes, new organizers, like you can add trash pullouts and spice pullouts, things like that, if your existing cabinets allow for it. But the really important thing to remember with refacing is you get to choose your new door style, right? So unlike painting, you're not stuck with whatever door style you had. You can totally transform the look of your kitchen with a new style. So that's one of the really nice things about refacing. So clearly, on this project, we're kind of in the phase where we're just starting to put on doors and drawer fronts. Once we get that accomplished, we're going to go through and we're going to add moldings to the cabinet. So like up here, we're going to get a piece of cove molding to cover up some of these gaps. At the bottom, we're going to get a light rail molding just to cover up that bottom edge of the cabinets. And one thing that we do in refacing that's a little different than other people is we like to put outside corner molding on these corners here. That does a couple things. It's gonna protect that outside edge from bumps and just kind of general mishaps that might happen, because We don't want that joint to separate over time, and that's kind of one of those common areas where it could happen. But also it just gives a really nice finished look to these cabinets, adds a little detail that, I'm kind of fond of. Once we've got all the moldings on, we're really close. We're going to change out your hardware, and then we're going to do a thorough clean of your kitchen. And really that's all there is to it. It's a really quick process, typically about 3 to 5 days. One of the really nice things about refacing is, your kitchen is about 70% still functional. I mean, you can use your sink still, obviously, unless you're replacing your countertops. But, you can still use some work surfaces when we're done for the day. You've still got your fridge operational, your oven. So unlike a full remodel where all that stuff has to go, it's really nice that, you can keep it somewhat functional during the process. Next, I want to talk about who refacing is a good project type for. So we usually send out a checklist of ask yourself these questions and maybe refacing is a good fit for you. Maybe it's not. It's not for everybody, but for some people it really makes a lot of sense. So I would say the biggest question to start by asking yourself is, do you need to change your layout? Because when we reface, we can't really change layout without going up into that next step, which is a kitchen remodel. Now, we can do kind of some minor changes like this cabinet over the fridge. We just changed that out because she wanted a slightly shorter one so that she could get a full-size fridge in here eventually. But that's really kind of the extent that we want to do when we reface. Like, if we have to replace all these cabinets, well, at that point, we're basically talking about a full remodel. So if you're okay with your current layout, then, refacing might be a good fit for you. So a sort of standard feature that we include when we reface cabinets is soft close doors. Now, you don't have to do that for your drawers and any roll trays or anything like that, but it's pretty standard that we add that soft close feature to the doors. I mean, you're talking like maybe a couple bucks per hinge. So, overall, that is one really nice benefit about refacing, is that that's kind of a standard feature. Where a lot of the kitchens we reface, all those old doors were just slamming constantly. And as you can see, it's a nice, quiet, soft close. Okay, so the next question you need to ask yourself if you're considering refacing is, how long can you live without your kitchen? Because an average full remodel for us, at a very bare minimum, takes 6 weeks. And that's 6 weeks where nothing's really functional. Like, your kitchen is gone for that period of time. And it's not really functional until at the very end when we reinstall appliances. But refacing, that's typically 3 to 5 days, sometimes, maybe an extra day in there. That's a big thing to consider. How long are you willing to be without your kitchen? And how quick of a turnaround do you really need on this? The other big factor to consider refacing, painting, remodeling is going to be cost. Like, a lot of us don't really like to talk about it, but it's a reality that we have to address. So most of our full remodel projects where we're gutting everything out, starting from scratch, I mean, it's not very often that, we get under 50 grand for those types of projects. Now, that's obviously everything included from demo to plumbing, electrical, the whole 9 yards. But refacing is an option that's pretty much a fraction of that. You can't really say specifics because every project is different. Some we're going to do countertops, some we're not. But it is definitely a much more affordable option for people. Just kind of generic ballpark range. For just the refacing, most of ours fall in that about 10 to 20 grand range. So it's definitely achievable for a lot of people. And like I said, you get to change the entire look of your kitchen with new doors, drawer fronts, without having the additional cost and the additional time investment of a full remodel. So one of the other factors that's, kind of a really big deal for a lot of people is going to be the factory finish that you get when you reface. Now, when we kind of juxtapose painting your cabinets versus refacing them, painting is always going to be a little bit less expensive. But the benefit of going with refacing is that you get that factory finish. Now, maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but kind of in layman's terms, if we're repainting this kitchen, we've got to put a ton of effort into prepping these surfaces. We've got to sand them, we've got to strip them. And even after all that, it's still not going to be the same quality as a factory finished door, because with this, we're starting from ground zero, right? We're starting from a product that is ready to accept primer or is ready to accept stain and toner without having to backtrack and remove 10 years, 20 years of grease off of it, right? So that's kind of one of the little idiosyncrasies between the two. But on top of that, when you have factory finished paints and stains, I mean, these go through a 14-step process to be finished. Now, that's also in factories where they're spending $50 million a year on new finishing equipment, right? I don't know any local painters who are spending that kind of money on a machine to refinish your cabinets, right? So it is a super high quality finish. It's very durable, and that makes people feel a lot more comfortable because they know this is a longer term investment than just painting, which is kind of typically like a Band-Aid solution. Let's recap, what are all the advantages of going with refacing? So number one is timeline. Much quicker than other methods. We're talking 3 to 5 days total to completely transform your kitchen. Advantage number two is the durability of the products that you're installing. So it's definitely tougher and stronger than a paint that gets applied to it, but you still get the factory finish that you get when you do a full remodel, but at a fraction of the cost. Number three is the budget. So it's not the full $50,000 to $100,000 full remodel. It's a much more modest, typically 10 to 20 grand investment. And number four, we're not losing the functionality of our kitchen during the remodel, which is super important for people who are busy and on the go.